Men of Reddit, what's your story of a woman being the creep? A woman at a local bar about twice my age was pestering me for a dance and not taking no for an answer. At one point, she was grinding against me, trying to sit on my lap, and constantly asking me for a kiss. Everyone at the table was super uncomfortable. Eventually, me and my friends dipped while she was in the toilet and switched bars. I later learned from a friend who frequents that bar that she did that kind of thing regularly. Story 2. I had a girlfriend in college that lived in a triple dorm room. After months of dating, I found out that she often called me over to hook up, while unbeknownst to me, her roommates were hiding in the closet so they could watch us and pleasure themselves. It was months after we broke up that I found out, and it kind of skeeved me out. But everyone minimized my feelings, so I just went on with my life. I'm sure it would be worse if this happened recently, since it would likely have been video recorded. But this was more than 20 years ago. Story 3. A few years ago, I dated this girl for about 3 months, and we were at my parents' house for New Year's Eve, and she slipped a ring into my pocket throughout the night at some point. Later on, when I was walking her home, I realized I had this ring in my pocket and asked her if she knew anything about it, and she said she wanted me to propose. I very quickly said no, as we were only 3 months into a relationship. On the first day back from winter break, I found loads of congratulations and weird stuff on my locker. She had told the whole school I had proposed and that she was pregnant. The next day, I broke up with her, because obviously none of this was okay. Fast forward 7 months, and I found out the night we broke up she tried to OD on her ADHD meds, and my friend had to call the ambulance to her house. Later that week, she had tried to pay my techie friend to delete all the nudes she had sold online in the last few days. We were both underage at the time. After not seeing her for 9 months, she makes an alternate Facebook account to say she is 2 months pregnant with my phantom baby and how she likes to sit outside my window and think about me at night. After calling the police and a week of them sitting in the driveway, she started a rumor that I watch her sleep at night, and her family has caught me on the new security cameras they installed. Luckily, I have not heard a word or any other weird rumors in 7 years. Thankfully, OP was finally able to have peace away from that girl. I'm sure it's scary to have someone that delusional to not leave you alone. Story 4. I had just started at a new company, and this happened during my first week. I was sitting in my cubicle snacking from a bag of mixed nuts when a lady in her 40s walked by. She said, "Can I have some of your nuts?" I really like nuts, but said it in an overtly sexual tone. I said very flatly, "Sure," and handed her the bag. She said, "Oh no, well, never mind," and walked away. As she left, she looked at the project assistant sitting across from me and said, "I guess he didn't get it," and cackled. The project assistant looked at me and just rolled her eyes, and I went back to work. Over the next year or so, she would make all kinds of weird innuendos like this, and I would reply as flatly as I could, until one day, my boss heard her and just said, "Kim, cut it out." They ended up running out of work for her to do after a while and let her go. Story 5. We were sitting at our table when the very drunk bride came up and started talking to me and my husband. Suddenly a song she liked came on, and she started grinding on my husband's lap. He was sitting there, obviously incredibly uncomfortable and unsure what to do. Thankfully, the groom came over and dragged her away. About a year later at our wedding, my photographer came over and pulled me aside. She asked if I would mind if she deleted the picture she had just taken. The woman who had grinded on my husband at her wedding came to mine commando in a short dress, and the photographer had accidentally gotten an upskirt when the woman had squatted down while dancing. Not surprisingly, she was very drunk, and her husband dragged her out. We haven't seen the two of them since, but per Facebook they are still together almost 11 years later, have 2 kids, and she appears to still like her wine and margaritas. I'm sure the husband has a handful trying to keep up with his wife, but it seems like it works for them. I'd like to know some more stories from her, as I'm sure there's plenty. Story 6. My friend had a female roommate who was a stripper. All the guys in our group thought she was hot, but she gave me such a bad vibe. Plus she smoked, which is an instant no from me. One Friday, we decided to hang out at his house, and after a few drinks, we went downtown. I'm not a heavy drinker, and I'm a big guy, so I have almost never been blackout drunk. Yet that night, I found myself refused entrance at a nightclub after 5 or 6 beers. My friend's roommate volunteered to drive me home, and I kept thanking her for being so nice. I am steadily getting more drunk, but I noticed we were heading towards her apartment, and not my house. She convinced me that it was smart to sleep it off on the couch, and then I could drive home the next day. When we got to her apartment, my memories are in 2-second fragments. She helped me into bed. She helped remove my shoes. She removed my pants. Even in that condition, I knew what she was trying to do. I tried to push her off and repeatedly said no. To this day, I remember that disgusting cigarette scent on her breath as she forcibly kissed me. I'm 225 pounds and 6'2", yet was never conscious long enough to push her off me or to get away from a 100-pound girl. I vaguely remember some of the various things she did to me. None of it was consensual. I woke up the next day sure it was a nightmare, only to see her there next to me, and it was very obvious that it had been real. The next weeks and months were a whirlwind of worry. Luckily, no pregnancy or STD. The few friends I told about it were jealous, wishing they could have slept with her. Definitely a double standard there. Story 7. When I was in my early 20s, I was doing some work on a duplex apartment in a complex with several other duplexes. It was a nice spring day, so I had the front door open to get some fresh air. A woman that lived in the complex came to the door and was chatting me up. She was flirty, but I didn't think much of it. She eventually asked me what I was doing for lunch, and I told her I was skipping lunch, so she asked me to come over and she would make me a sandwich. I thanked her, but declined. She was very persistent about offering me a sandwich, and she wasn't taking no for an answer. Pretty soon, I realized sandwich was code for sex. I still kept resisting, and it went from being amusing to creepy. She finally disappeared for a minute, so I packed up my tools and hit the road. As I was going down the road, this car pulled up beside me, and it was that lady telling me to pull over. I pretended like I couldn't see her and just sped up until she was gone. Now my wife and I refer to making a sandwich as a code. Story 8. I was a server in a restaurant and had 2 girls that walked in. I went over to introduce myself, and the first 3 things one girl said to me was, "Are you straight? Are you single? Do you want my number?" She wasn't attractive, and it's pretty difficult to dodge that when I have to now serve her table for the remainder of the shift, so I disappeared for about 5 minutes. I checked my phone, and I had someone new add me on Snapchat and Instagram. I went back to the table, and she told me she was able to find my info anyways. I asked someone else to wait on them for the remainder of the night, but I was pretty shocked that someone would do that while I was working, finding my social media from just a first name. Hitting on someone while they're just trying to do their job is one of the worst ways to go about trying to meet someone. Of course, you should always take no for an answer and leave it at that, but while they're working is even worse, as they're already stressed trying to do their work. Story 9. When I was around 20 years old, I was at a club that used to be mostly for gay men, but had become a club for everyone. There were 2 women who told me they were over 50 and told me that they were cougars who go to bars specifically to hook up with much younger guys. I told them that I'm gay and not interested. I was polite about it, but they kept insisting that I should leave with them. They kept saying that they could turn me straight and different stuff like that. They kept trying to buy me drinks and feel me up while we were standing at the bar. One of them eventually just grabbed my ass. The whole time I was saying that I wasn't interested, that I'm gay, and that they need to leave me alone. When they grabbed me, I just walked out, completely left the club and started heading home. I didn't report it because I assumed that I'd just be laughed at and be mocked for not liking the behavior. It's been 8 years since then, and I'm still tempted to get a rainbow tattooed on me in case it happens again. I figure that showing a tattoo might be a good signal that I'm being serious. Story 10. I was out at a bar on a Saturday night, and a girl whom I was casually acquainted with came up next to me to order a bucket of Coronas. We had only met like one time before this through mutual friends, and there wasn't any flirting or anything like that. We said hey, and she told me she was out with a bachelorette party, and I responded with, "Sounds like a hoot. Hope you guys have a good night." 10 minutes later, me and my friends were ready to leave. I went to the bar to close my tab and decided to buy them a bucket of Coronas to be nice. It was only like $12, so what the heck? Why not? I told the bartender the bucket was for their bachelorette party, paid, and left without saying a word to their table. 3 blocks down the road, and I heard some girls calling my name from behind me. They had chased me down the street to tell me that they didn't want my beers and that they weren't going to sleep with me just because I bought them alcohol. I was very confused and could only respond with, "What?" They told me it was sexist of me to buy them beers and that they knew I was just trying to get in their pants. I just decided to turn and walk away. They followed me for another 30 seconds or so, yelling at me about how much of a douche I was, and of course all the onlookers took their side. I had to avoid fights with 2 random large groups of other guys who blindly took their side. They had literally stalked me, chased me, and harassed me, all because I sent their table some beers on my way out the door without ever even approaching the table. Story 11. I was 23 at the time and worked as a bartender in a higher-class bar for 2 years. I had just got out of a really toxic relationship which devastated me, so I was hitting the gym 5 to 6 times a week. I was pretty shredded, which paid off with the tips I got, especially from 40-plus-year-old women. There was one which really creeped me out, though. She was late 30s and came around one early evening with some friends, and they were a few cocktails deep. I had the closing shift, so I started to send my coworkers home around 1 in the morning, and I was the only one left with 2 tables to serve. One of the tables was the woman with her friend. They asked me for a cigarette, so I gave her and the friend one, and they invited me to join them, so I did. We had a pretty nice conversation, and she started to come closer. I didn't care, because I was basically used to more mature women trying their shot after a few. I told her that I was very sorry, but not interested at all. She accepted it at first, said that she was sorry, paid, and left a little embarrassed. Again, I didn't care, and paid it no mind. So I closed the bar for that evening and went to the locker room. She was in our back office wearing a nice dress, which she lifted a little bit. I basically told her in a nice way to screw off, and I told her again that I was not interested in her. She ignored me and tried to get closer. I told her to leave and took a step back into the guest room since we had some cameras in there. Maybe security was still at the bar and would see what was happening. I knew that I was screwed if I didn't manage to get in the camera's vision. She pulled a knife out and told me that I'd do as she says, or it would end badly for me. Luckily, there was still a security guard left who called the cops on her. As the cops arrived, her whole personality changed, and she started to shiver and told the cops that I was harassing her. Security showed them the videotapes, and they arrested her. I never did the closing shift alone again. I never saw her again, and she never came back. Still, that was pretty scary and creepy.